These are the times Peter should have divorced Lois Griffin in Family Guy. Peter Griffin's marriage to Lois might seem like a typical dysfunctional sitcom romance, but let's be real, there are so many times Peter should have just called it quits. From reckless spending to downright humiliation, Lois has pushed Peter to the absolute brink more times than anyone cares to admit. Today, we're looking at every single moment Peter should have walked away. First of all, when Peter's midlife crisis collides with presidential charm, both he and Lois discover that cheating comes in many unexpected forms. It all kicks off at an aquarium, where Peter gets into a full-blown wrestling match with an octopus. After getting smacked around like a soggy beach ball, Peter realises he's out of shape and needs to hit the gym. Fast forward to Quahog Gym, where Peter, trying to prove he's still got it, attempts to lift the back end of Bill Clinton's limo. He throws out his back and ends up in the hospital. While lying there feeling like a broken action figure, Peter starts spiralling. He's depressed, he feels old, he's lost his edge. But then enters Bill Clinton. Yep, the real one. Slick Willie himself shows up and tells Peter that age is just a number. Then they go both full college frat mode. Late night partying, greasy food, chaos. It's a disaster, but Peter's loving it. Lois, however, is not loving it. She's tired of Peter running wild with a former president, so she storms over to Bill's hotel to put an end to their bromance. Except, she ends up sleeping with him instead. That's right, Lois cheats on Peter with Bill Clinton. Let that sink in. Peter shows up later, excited for another round of guys' night, and finds his wife in bed with Bill. He's crushed, and Lois is guilty. And her solution? Let Peter sleep with someone of his choice to make it even. Bad idea. Peter picks Babs. Yes, Lois' own mother. Shockingly, Babs is totally up for it, like aggressively ready. But Peter chickens out at the last second. He forgives Lois, says no to revenge sex.
Lois, wait! I can't do it.
He decides to end his friendship with Bill, but when he tries to say goodbye to Bill, guess what? He ends up in bed with him too. Yeah, Peter Griffin slept with the same guy his wife cheated on him with. You can't make this stuff up. Meanwhile, Lois forces Brian the dog to potty train. With Stewie acting like a mini boot camp instructor, Brian tries and fails hard. He ends up in diapers until he finds a solution, using Mayor West's yard as his personal bathroom. West thinks it's a result of planting sausage seeds, because of course he does.
Hello, old friend. What the hell?
No! No!
Moving to the next one, a birthday roast gone wrong sends Lois spiralling into a midlife makeover that threatens to tear apart more than just her wardrobe. So, it's Lois' birthday, and she's not feeling it. No one likes getting older, but Lois is in full-on denial mode. Brian tries to help by planning a surprise party. Sounds sweet, right? Wrong. Peter decides to write Lois a poem at the party, but instead of making her feel loved, the poem basically reminds her she's getting old and wrinkly.
Yay! Birthday!
Oh my god!
Ouch. Everyone claps, but Lois? She's one insult away from a full meltdown. The next day, Lois goes full midlife crisis. She gets a makeover, buys new clothes, and starts acting like she's 21 again.
Hey, sluts!
Suddenly, she's talking slang, partying, and dressing like she belongs in a music video. Peter's confused, but also kinda into it. For a while, at first, Peter enjoys the new Lois. She's exciting, wild, wearing crop tops.
Hey, I like this new you. I like it a lot.
But then it starts getting annoying. At one party, Peter just wants to nap, but Lois wants to dance with a bunch of college girls. She ditches him and keeps partying. Peter goes home, grumpy and exhausted. Later, he sees a news report on TV. Guess who's hanging out backstage with teenage girls at a Justin Bieber concert? Yep, Lois. She's even trying to seduce Bieber. Peter can't believe it. He storms the concert and punches Justin Bieber in the face. Hard. Security doesn't even have time to blink. Peter tells Lois, let's go home, but she refuses. She's mad because Peter called her names earlier. Stuff like old and lame. Peter says sorry and admits he misses real Lois, not this wannabe pop star. That softens her a little. But before they can leave, the crowd demands Bieber. So Peter is pushed on stage, dressed in glitter, and forced to perform as Conway Bieber. Yes, really.
Mr. Conway Bieber.
Everywhere.
Back home, Peter tells Lois again how much he loves her, but accidentally gets her age wrong. When she corrects him, he yells, "Get out!" Real smooth, Peter. Meanwhile, Stewie finds a turtle at the park and brings it home. He names him Sheldon. Bad mood.
What the deuce? Well, hello there. I say, you're a cute little fellow. Tell me something, what do you think about Rose McGowan?
At first, Sheldon seems harmless, but pretty soon, weird stuff starts happening. Things break, lights flicker, Stewie almost dies. He realises Sheldon isn't a pet, he's a psycho. One night, Sheldon goes full villain. Stewie flushes him down the toilet, thinking it's over. Nope. Sheldon comes back stronger and madder. He even leaves creepy boxes with heads inside. Rupert and some random guys.
I don't know who this is.
In the final showdown, Sheldon attacks Stewie in his room. It's intense. Just when Sheldon's about to win, Mario, yes, that Mario, jumps in and saves the day.
Oh my god, Super Mario! What are you doing here?
I jump on a turtle, Stewie. It's not an exciting life, but is my life.
Moving on to an innocent dinner with an old flame ignites a jealousy war that proves the Griffins are equally matched in their capacity for chaos. While shopping at the bulk store, everything seems normal. Well, as normal as it gets with the Griffins. But the real chaos starts later, when Lois runs into someone from her past, Ross Fishman, her old boyfriend. He's smooth, polite, and way better looking than Peter. Yep, trouble is coming. Lois wants to meet up with Ross to catch up over dinner. Nothing romantic, or so she says. But she knows Peter and his jealousy issues, so she hides it. Brian finds out and tells her, "Don't let Peter control your life. Go live a little," which, by the way, is terrible advice. So Lois listens. She puts on her cute dress, ignores Peter, and heads out to dinner with Ross. They laugh, they talk, they flirt, basically a date. And Peter, he finds out, and he loses it.
Why the hell would she... Whoa, I can see your skin cells.
Peter doesn't take this lightly. He pouts, he stomps, and eventually they end up in couples therapy because apparently seeing your wife date her ex is something a few counselling sessions can fix. The therapist watches their home videos thanks to hidden cameras in the house. Super normal. And after 1 week, drops a bombshell. They need a trial separation, some space, a break. And Peter hears, "Date night."
Ow! 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 This hurts me more than it hurts you.
So what does Peter do? He grabs a suit and takes out Jennifer Love Hewitt. Yep, that Jennifer Love Hewitt. Somehow, she agrees to go out with him. Why? Still unclear. Maybe a dare? But karma works fast. Lois just happens to be at the same restaurant, and when she sees Peter with another woman, she snaps. Her eyes go red, she launches across the room like a flying squirrel in heels and attacks Jennifer. Drinks are flying, chairs are knocked over. Peter's date night? Well, that's over. Instead of being mad, Peter is kind of impressed. Turns out Lois is just as crazy jealous as he is, and that makes them a perfect match.
Gosh, I guess I finally understand how you can Yeah, you better run, you little bitch!
They ditch the drama, sit down at their own table, and talk it out, Griffin style, which means punching out every poor waiter or waitress who comes near them. They don't need food, they need chaos. And just like that, they fall in love again. When Death himself has to intervene in Peter's marriage, you know anniversary planning has reached catastrophic levels. It's Peter and Lois' wedding anniversary. Big day, right? Well, not for Peter. Instead of planning something sweet, Peter sends Lois on a scavenger hunt just so he can sneak off to play golf at the fancy Barrington Country Club. Because nothing says, "I love you," like ditching your wife at 18 holes.
All right, gentlemen, before you tee off, here are your complimentary monogrammed bag towels.
While Peter's golfing, the universe has had enough. He gets struck by lightning and dies. Kind of. He ends up in some weird afterlife waiting room where Death shows up. Not to take him away though, Death wants to give Peter a reality check. Death tells Peter the hard truth. If he keeps ignoring Lois and treating their marriage like a joke, she's gonna leave him. In this version of the future, Lois divorces Peter. 2 years later, Peter kills himself. Yikes. Peter freaks out, but Death says he'll help if Peter helps him get a date with Amy, a cute girl who works at a pet shop, because even the Grim Reaper needs a wingman. To teach Peter a lesson, Death takes him on a trip back in time to when Peter was still trying to win over Lois. Back then, Peter was already a mess. Her rich dad, Carter Pewterschmidt, hated him. So much that he literally had Peter knocked out and tossed out of a plane into the ocean.
Oh, that's great.
Yep, that really happened. Luckily, Peter was picked up by a US Navy ship where Quagmire just so happened to be working, because of course he was. Peter then gets a ride back home with Cleveland Brown, but not before being chased by the Ku Klux Klan. No, there is no normal in Peter's life. When Peter finally gets back to Lois, her dad offers him $1 million to leave her alone. But for once, Peter does the right thing. He turns it down and sticks by Lois. Back in the present, Peter realises he's taken Lois for granted. He decides to do something romantic, something big. So he asks Peter Frampton, yes, the real one, to serenade Lois with their song. And it worked. Lois is touched, and Peter actually manages not to screw things up, for once. Meanwhile, Death goes on his date with Amy, but it's a disaster. She won't stop talking about animal rights and veganism and saving ferrets. Death gets so annoyed he literally touches her. Poof, gone. And casually asks the waiter for the check. Brutal. Next, a romantic getaway becomes a love triangle nightmare when Brian's literary talents mask his inappropriate desires. Peter and Lois are not doing great. Their marriage is rocky, but mostly because Peter would rather hang out with his buddies at the bar than spend 5 minutes with his wife. Real mature, right? Brian wins an award for an essay he wrote. Yes, the dog writes essays. And he's invited to Martha's Vineyard to receive it. He thinks it'll be a nice getaway and maybe help Peter and Lois reconnect. So they all go. Fancy hotel, relaxing vibe, romantic setting. What could go wrong? Oh yeah, Peter Griffin could go wrong. As soon as they get there, Peter forgets why he's even on this trip. He drinks, he jokes around, and totally blows off Brian's award ceremony. Meanwhile, Brian reads part of his poem, which, surprise, it's about Lois. She's touched. It's emotional. It's sweet. Peter, he shows up late and completely drunk, like a human wrecking ball. The next morning, Lois tries to forgive him again, but Peter already made other plans. So, she spends the day with Brian instead. They talk, they laugh, and they bond. Peter, he stays in the room and literally laughs so hard watching Three's Company that he poops himself, because of course he does. Lois, once again, alone and ignored, decides to have dinner with Brian. But Brian, he's not thinking straight. He's got feelings, and not the cute kind. He starts fantasizing about Lois. Later that evening, he actually makes a move on her. It's aggressive, awkward, and creepy. Lois kicks him out. Now Brian's freaking out. He calls himself a rapist and asks Stewie for help, like Stewie's some kind of emotional therapist now. The next morning, Lois tells Peter what happened. Does Peter get angry that another man tried to seduce his wife? Nope. He gets mad because that man was Brian. At the hotel bar, Peter confronts him. Brian tells Peter he's not good enough for Lois. Peter claps back, saying Brian has never had a successful relationship in his life. They fight, and it gets physical. But then they calm down and agree to fix it. Brian promises to never come between them again. Lois forgives him too, though she does admit she sometimes feels the same way about Brian. Wait, what? Yep. Lois basically says, yeah, sometimes I wish you were my man too, Brian. But then shrugs it off and stays with Peter anyway. Because reasons? The episode ends with them all smiling and singing The Spirit of Massachusetts, like nothing ever happened. Totally normal. Meanwhile, back home, Peter and Lois left Herbert to babysit the kids. He acts super creepy towards Chris, as always, makes Meg give him a bath, and reads Chris a bedtime story with questionable vibes. Chris finally asks if he's a paedophile. Took him long enough. Remember when Peter's intellectual limitations became his ultimate get out of jail free card? Until hot grease and child services make the stakes dangerously real. The Griffins invite the neighbours over for a game night. Everyone's excited to play some Trivial Pursuit, you know, the fancy quiz game where you show off your smarts. But Lois has a plan. She secretly gives Peter the preschool edition questions. Yep, the easiest ones. Because, let's be honest, Peter can barely remember his own name, let alone world history. Peter dominates the game. He's so proud of himself, bragging like he just solved world hunger. The neighbours get annoyed, especially Brian. Brian's had enough of Peter acting like he's the smartest guy in the room. Brian challenges Peter. If you're really a genius, apply for the MacArthur Genius Grant. Peter takes the test. The results come back. The truth? Peter is intellectually challenged. Basically, he's dumb as a rock. Peter gets depressed, like big time. He's sitting alone, feeling sorry for himself. Then, of course, disaster strikes. Peter accidentally runs over Tom Tucker, the local news guy. Tucker is furious at first, until he realises it's Peter who hit him. Suddenly, Tom shrugs it off. No cops, no problem. Peter sees a bright side. Being mentally disabled means he can do whatever he wants and get away with it. So, he starts acting like a wild man. He screams words over a fast food intercom, kicks open women's bathroom doors, and generally acts like a tornado of chaos. Things get worse when Peter tries to steal a deep fryer from a restaurant. He accidentally splashes hot grease all over Lois. Lois ends up in the hospital, covered in burns.
No freaking way. The fryer later. Oh, I am so taking this.
Child Protective Services show up. Agent Jessup tells Peter he's unfit to be a parent. The kids get taken away and given to Cleveland Brown. Yeah, Cleveland. Brian tells Peter to shape up and prove he's a good dad if he wants the kids back. Peter has a brilliant idea. Instead of being a better parent, he decides to prove Cleveland is worse. So what does he do? He crashes Cleveland's house with 7 prostitutes, like it's some bachelor party from hell.
This'll show him that Cleveland's not fit to be a parent.
So, tell me, is there any tread left on the tyres at all? Or at this point, would it be like throwing a hot dog down a hallway?
Agent Jessup sees right through it. Cleveland kicks out Peter and most of the prostitutes. Peter ends up in court, begging to get his kids back. He makes a sad speech, but it doesn't work. He barely avoids jail time. Back home, Peter and Brian are miserable, thinking the Griffins will never be a family again. Then, lo and behold, Lois walks in. She's healed with kids in tow. She tells Peter she got the kids back. Peter's over the moon. The best part? Lois smells like French fries for the next 6 months, thanks to the deep fryer incident. And honestly, that's the real win here. When Lois starts as an environmental hero but quickly becomes a corrupt politician when money gets involved. The Griffins head out for a vacation at Quagmire's cabin. Sounds peaceful, right? Well, not for long. They go swimming in Lake Quahog, but something's wrong. Suddenly, everyone's hair starts falling out. Yep, just like that, bald Griffins everywhere. Turns out the Quahog oil refinery is dumping toxic waste right into the lake. Lovely. Lois, ever the responsible one, complains to Mayor Adam West. But guess what? Mayor West admits he let the refinery dump waste because they gave him free oil. Nice deal, huh? Lois is furious. She decides enough is enough. She's going to run against Mayor West in the next election and clean up this mess. At first, Lois seems like the smart choice. She's got ideas, plans, and a real vision to improve Quahog. But politics isn't about smarts. Mayor West, weird and clueless as always, somehow plays the game better. He avoids questions, acts patronising, and basically bores the voters less than Lois's detailed speeches. Voters love that. Brian watches all this and sums it up perfectly. Undecided voters are the biggest idiots in the country. Ouch. Brian tells Lois to dumb down her campaign. She tries it and, surprise, it works. Lois starts throwing out scary words like Jesus and terrorist without meaning. When asked about her policies, she just says 9/11. That's it. No detail, no plans. People eat it up. She wins the election by scaring everyone into voting for her. Once in office, Lois raises money for cleaning the lake. The cleanup happens and the lake looks better, but Lois still has some leftover cash. She steals $600 to buy a fancy new purse. Yep, straight up embezzlement. Then, temptation strikes harder. A $4,300 fur coat. Enter Bob Grossbeard, president of Quahog Oil. He offers to buy Lois the coat if she lets them start dumping waste again. Lois, who started this fight to protect the lake, says yes. The toxic waste flows back into the lake. Fish get weird. People get weird. Jake Tucker becomes normal, whatever that means. Lois looks in the mirror and finally sees the truth. Power has corrupted her. She quits as mayor and tells West, here, you can have your job back. West, of course, declares himself mayor again. But here's the thing, legally, he can't just do that. There should be a new election. Does anyone care? Nope. West pulls out a gun and shoots the person who points out the obvious problem. Then he shoots a few others for good measure. Still, no one stands up to him. No one tries to stop him or question if a man who just shot people should be mayor. That's Quahog for you. Meanwhile, Peter and Lois are back home, and the family is still a mess, as usual. Moving on to another episode, when Lois trades housewife duties for runway dreams. Peter's jealousy reaches kidnapping levels of desperation. Lois is visiting her parents, and she starts thinking about her teenage dreams. Back then, she wanted to be a model. Her dad, Carter Schmidt, was totally against it. Typical rich dad, thinks modelling isn't serious enough. But Lois is stubborn. She decides to follow her dream and starts modelling. And guess what? She's really good at it. She becomes very successful, walking runways and appearing in magazines. But things start to get weird. Lois's agent, Karen Perotta, gives her diet pills to keep her skinny and energetic. Lois stays out all night, partying and living the wild life. Peter notices all of this and gets super jealous. He's not happy that other men are staring at Lois and chasing after her. His jealousy grows so big, it's almost a second personality. Desperate to save his marriage, Peter teams up with Carter. They come up with a plan to get Lois out of the modelling world. At a big Vogue party, they kidnap her. Yes, real classy. They bring Lois back to the Griffin house. Carter demands Lois quit modelling, saying it's bad for her and the family name. Peter tries to back Carter up at first, but he soon realises something important. Lois really loves modelling. She wants to do it and it's her choice. So, Peter switches sides. He tells Carter that Lois has every right to follow her dreams. Talk about a 180. But here's the twist. Lois, now feeling totally free, decides to quit modelling anyway, because that's how Lois rolls. And in a very Griffin way, Peter and Lois celebrate by having sex, right on Carter's back. Yep, Carter's lying there, and they don't care. Meanwhile, Stewie is cooking up his own scheme. He starts a pyramid business called Cash Scam. Brian finds out he has worms, gross, he can't afford the medicine, but he's too embarrassed to ask Peter for money. So, Brian decides to work for Stewie to pay for his meds. He acts like Cash Scam is a real company, but deep down, he knows it's a joke. Brian soon gets fed up with Stewie's nonsense and ends up getting fired by him. Yeah, even the dog can't handle Stewie's scams. Next, Peter's birthday gift idea turns Lois into a boxing champion, but her real opponent might be the husband who keeps forcing her into the ring. Peter is super excited. His birthday's coming up. Finally, a day all about him. When the big day arrives, Joe gives Peter a globe as a gift. Peter isn't too thrilled. Meanwhile, Cleveland sends a card, but he forgets to turn off the recording on his phone. So Peter gets an accidental concert of Cleveland singing in his car. Awkward. Later, Cleveland gets pulled over by a racist cop. Things get ugly fast. Cleveland tries to run, but the cop shoots him and lets dogs attack him. Terrible. Peter closes the card thinking Cleveland is okay, because that's how Peter handles things. He ignores the problems. Then, Peter gets tickets to a boxing match from Quagmire. Sounds like fun. At the match, the announcer says the house champion will fight anyone brave enough to step up. Peter thinks, hey, Lois should do this. He makes a fake plaster hand modelled after Lois's hand and raises it to sign her up. Lois thinks it's a fun thing to try, but no, it's not fun. Her opponent punches her hard, and Lois quickly loses her temper. Then, in true Lois style, she turns the fight around and wins. Boom. Peter tries to be Lois's manager. She says, no more fighting, but Peter doesn't listen. He tricks Lois by telling her they're going to a fancy restaurant. Then, he blindfolds her and takes her to another fight. Lois tries to explain it's a mistake, but she snaps when the fight starts. In her mind, Lois imagines her opponent is Peter, the guy who tricked her. She fights with all her anger and beats the opponent quickly. She keeps fighting, keeps winning, many matches after that. But then, Lois breaks her nose. Ouch. She tells Peter that she was imagining her opponents as him. She says she's gotten most of her anger out and wants to retire from fighting. That sounds reasonable. Mayor Adam West throws a party to celebrate Lois's victories and retirement. Everyone's impressed. But then a new challenger arrives, Deirdre Jackson. She wants to fight Lois. Lois says no. Deirdre humiliates Peter instead. Peter looks embarrassed and defeated. That's when Lois changes her mind and accepts Deirdre's challenge. On the news, Deirdre says she will kill Lois in the 6th round. She's already beaten 3 other women before. Peter starts to worry. Maybe Deirdre really means it. The fight begins. Lois gets beaten badly each round. She's hurt and almost gives up. But in the 6th round, Lois finds strength she didn't know she had. She fights back with everything she's got and wins. Lois officially quits fighting after that match. She's had enough. She goes back to her regular life, taking care of her family, and Peter tries not to get into trouble. Moving on to the next one. Brain-damaged horse purchase leads to medical experiments that temporarily rewrite Peter's sexual orientation and nearly rewrite his marriage. So, Peter heads out on a simple grocery run, except, surprise surprise, it never stays simple with him. This time, he gets completely sidetracked by a brain-damaged horse. Yes, you heard that right, a horse with, well, let's just say it's not winning any horsey IQ tests. Naturally, Peter buys the poor creature, much to the collective horror of everyone around him, because why not? But wait, it gets better. Not content with just owning a horse, Peter enters this disaster-prone beast into a race. What could possibly go wrong? The answer? Everything. The horse goes full rampage mode, tearing through everything in sight and leaving a $100,000 trail of destruction. Oh, and as if the chaos wasn't enough, the horse drops dead from a heart attack. Peter, in true Griffin fashion, decides the best way to deal with the body is by chucking it into Mort Goldman's pharmacy. Yep, that's how you handle dead horses in Quahog.
God, it even runs like it's messed up in the head.
Unsurprisingly, the Griffins are now drowning in debt thanks to Peter's adventure. Naturally, Peter's brilliant solution to paying off the damages is volunteering for a series of medical drug tests. Because, sure, what's the worst thing that could happen? And oh boy, things do take a wild turn. In one experiment, Peter gets injected with some experimental gene that, surprise surprise, makes him gay. Lois is understandably upset at first. I mean, who wouldn't be? But then, strangely enough, she softens a bit when Peter starts embracing stereotypical gay behaviours, like enthusiastically shopping for clothes and baking muffins, because nothing says, I'm okay with this, quite like watching your husband redecorate and whip up a batch of blueberry muffins. But don't get too comfortable yet. Lois's acceptance hits a brick wall when Peter starts rejecting her sexual advances. And to make things even more complicated, Peter's new orientation might be permanent. Yikes. Lois tries her best to cope with the unexpected change, but when Peter finally leaves her for a man named Scott, her heartbreak is real and raw.
You complete me, you know that? You just make me want to be a gayer man.
God, I feel so bad for Lois. She really misses Peter.
Because nothing says divorce material quite like your husband packing his bags and leaving for another dude. Meanwhile, Stewie, who might himself be gay, and Brian, ever the hesitant supporter of gay rights, decide it's time for a rescue mission. Their plan? Kidnap Peter and send him to a straight camp for some good old-fashioned conversion therapy. Because, well, why not? Things get even messier when Scott shows up looking for Peter, and Brian spills the beans about their kidnapping scheme. Lois, after some soul-searching, decides to accept Peter for who he is and encourages him to go back to Scott. That's growth, right? Just when you think the chaos has died down, the gene's effects mysteriously wear off, right in the middle of an orgy with Peter and 9 other men. Talk about awkward timing. Eventually, Peter returns to his family and they all agree to pretend this entire bizarre ordeal never happened. Because denial is bliss in the Griffin household. And finally, when Joe's surprised feelings become the talk of the neighbourhood, Peter and Lois have to face the awkward reality about their own marriage. The Griffins go to an anniversary party at Carter and Babs's huge mansion. Lois wears a swimsuit, looking great as usual. Lois goes to the bathroom to change. Suddenly, Joe accidentally walks in on her. Yep, he sees her and, well, he gets an erection. Totally unexpected for Joe after all these years. Joe quickly leaves, embarrassed. Later, Bonnie tells Lois something shocking. For the first time in a long time, Joe was able to have sex with her. Interesting. While doing chores around the house, Lois notices Joe sneaking a peek at her through the window. So, what does she do? She puts on a show, just to tease him. Joe, of course, gets another erection, which Bonnie notices too. But when Lois tries to be sexy for Peter that night, guess what? Peter is totally uninterested. Zero excitement. Nada. The next day, Quagmire is out jogging with Donna. He sees Lois showing off for Joe again. Quagmire doesn't like it and tells Peter what's going on. Peter loses it. He confronts Joe and punches him out. Classic Peter reaction. Then, Peter talks to Lois. She points out that he wasn't interested in her either. Peter admits that she doesn't excite him anymore, but when he tries to turn it around on her, it falls flat. Lois goes back to Joe, who says he can't keep doing this. He's Peter's best friend and feels guilty. Feeling desperate for attention, Lois dresses as a nurse and goes to a veterans hospital, but things go wrong. She gets arrested. Peter's also under arrest for some weird, deviant behaviour. They find themselves in jail together. There, they admit something honest. It seems like they have no secrets or surprises left in their marriage. But even so, there's no one else they'd rather be with. When they get home, they start playing role-playing games to bring back some excitement. Meanwhile, their anniversary gift? Instead of an expensive car, they get a toy car. They give it to Stewie. Stewie acts all fancy and proud of his new toy car. But soon, he has to pick up a very drunk Brian, who vomits all over the car. Stewie cleans it up and complains to Chris about how much work a car needs, even a toy one. One day, while driving with his stuffed animals, Stewie gets distracted by a boy riding a big wheel. He loses focus and crashes into a telephone pole. Poor Rupert gets thrown from the car. Stewie worries, but Rupert's fine. Stewie burns the broken car and files an insurance claim. But the insurance adjuster has video from a Ring camera showing what really happened. Stewie also has some evidence of his own misdeeds. In the end, Stewie gets his insurance check. Stewie doesn't like it and refuses to let Chris read any more of his stories.